Hey guys, lately I've heard a lot of criticism towards a system in the newer COD game, and this system is called SBMM and EOMM. For some reason, the main focus is on SBMM and not EOMM. People in the fighting game community had some back and forth arguing with people in the COD community, thinking that the people in the first person shooter community mostly share the same opinion on SBMM as the Call of Duty peeps are, when it's something you commonly hear from the other COD peeps, not the rest of the first person shooter community. What is SBMM and EOMM? Why are the COD peeps so up in arms about SBMM? What does SBMM and EOMM even stand for? All of these questions will be answered throughout this video, so stay tuned. Grab a popcorn or any type of snack you prefer, because this is going to get lengthy. So I want to state my stance on these two first, before I continue further, to avoid any misunderstandings in the comment section. I am in favor of SBMM when it's done right, but against EOMM. SBMM stands for skill-based matchmaking, while EOMM stands for engagement optimized matchmaking. Both of them are matchmaking systems, and I'll explain why I'm in favor of one as opposed to the other. The way SBMM works is that it puts you up against people who are at a similar skill or similar enough skill level to you, at least when it's done properly. If it's too loose, then it will feel like it never existed in the first place, but if it's done too strictly, it can get frustrating to find players when the player base gets smaller at a specific time. Developers will often implement SBMM not to please the consumers, but for the increased chance that the consumers will buy their cosmetics, as it's been shown to do that from their statistics of players that stays longer. Think about it, if you get pub stomped, you're more likely to quit the game compared to if you feel like you have a chance in the match. Now, while the developers and publishers' intentions are for greed, it's a good thing for the gameplay experience when SBMM is done properly. I say greed because microtransaction is inherently greedy, and if you have a problem with SBMM making people spend more money on microtransaction, then you should focus instead on microtransaction, not SBMM. I hear mostly bad arguments when people voice their takes against SBMM, since a lot of those arguments comes from a place of selfishness. It's the same mentality I see in the Left 4 Dead 2 versus community, where they think the vocal minority's gameplay experience is more important than the majority's gameplay experience. You'll see what I mean when you go into the Left 4 Dead 2 Steam discussions that discusses the controversy of versus. Anyways, back to COD. Here are some common arguments or responses against SBMM.
You won't get better because of SBMM, but you will get better without it.
This is not true, it's the opposite. If you get pub stomped the entire time, then you're not gonna improve much. Compare that to when you're put up against people who are at a similar skill to you. That will help you improve much quicker.
SBMM in COD makes killstreaks way too rare to achieve.
The simple solution to this is to decrease the killstreak requirement. For example, instead of 25 kills in a row for a certain killstreak, it can be 10 kills in a row.
Just get good.
This is more of a response and a non-argument. And I've also seen some people who argue in favor of SBMM do. If you argue in favor of SBMM, like I am, do not fall under this trap. It will make you come across as not only ignorant, but someone who is incapable of making arguments, so less people will take you seriously.
SBMM is too strict, too loose, and that's why we need to get rid of it.
SBMM being too strict or too loose can be fixed easily by adjusting it to be stricter or looser. Just because the implementation is done poorly does not mean it has to be removed entirely, especially when it has a massive positive. The positive being that it makes for a more fair experience for all players.
SBMM only exists to benefit the devs MTX.
The COD developers' intentions are clear. They have SBMM because they know that the players staying in their game for longer equals more money to them from people buying their cosmetics. the players end up staying longer because they don't get stomped. So while their intention is bad because of greed, the outcome for the players' gameplay experience is positive. I just wish more of these YouTubers had such a strong dislike towards SBMM, would focus their attention to microtransaction and EOMM instead.
SBMM exists in a game that I play and the game is unfair as hell.
If that's the case, it's most likely because of two factors influencing that. Either it's a factor completely separate from SBMM called game balance doing that, or it's how loose the SBMM is implemented. These common arguments are pretty bad, as you can see, but believe it or not, there are some good arguments against SBMM. I'll bring up 3 good arguments.
SBMM leads to ladder anxiety when you are at the top level, so you end up playing less than usual because you are anxious of the thought of getting deranked through the skill list.
This is a good argument, and this is something that happened in StarCraft. My solution to this, and this could be a hot take, would be to hide the skill score and hide the player ranked list. Not to be confused with the scoreboard that you see in a match, to prevent that from happening. While the majority of players, the casuals, end up playing more because of SBMM, the top players can end up playing less when the score is shown and you're compared to other players in that list. From my understanding, it's turning MMR to ELO.
SBMM leads to fake players to make the bad players feel great.
While I don't like the idea of fake players, fake in this context meaning bots, I don't think it's an issue if those fake players are only there for the first few online matches you play, when you're playing your first playthrough of the game. To give you an example, the free game Paladins does this. If the game would put you up against bots when you get D-ranked, however, because of how poorly you played that last time, I would have an issue with that, with how it's implemented.
SBMM makes playing with friends harder to do.
This one is difficult to find a solution to. I was thinking maybe having separate modes, one having SBMM and one not having it, but that would probably split the player base more than it needs to be, so I don't have a perfect solution to that problem at the moment. Now, let's focus our attention to the very deceptive one, EOMM. How this matchmaking system works is that instead of making it a fair gameplay experience for consumers, this one goes out of its way to make it unfair and is especially driven by greedy intentions. But it's not just greedy intentions, but so is the action. To elaborate, the main framework of this implementation is that it will put you up against people who will pub stomp you as a result of not purchasing a lot of cosmetics, battle passes, etc. If you were to be a whale by purchasing a lot of things, you will be put up against people who are worse than you, though I would imagine it would be fake players if you're like the worst of the worst players, like DSP Gaming. It's not completely 100% certain that EOMM exists, but considering how greedy developers and game publishers are nowadays, it wouldn't surprise me if they did. To be able to find out, someone would have to reverse engineer the game, which may lead to some legal issues, or a developer would have to give you the game's code, which I don't see the latter happening. The former could happen, but it could be illegal, or might be difficult depending on the game and the engine we're talking about. I guess the third way of finding out would be the unintended ways, like leaks. Now, while that's the main idea of EOMM, some people think that a COD game takes the EOMM approach in a less solid way, by blatantly changing the weapon damage of your gun, depending on if you're a whale to the devs or not. I don't believe in the weapon damage EOMM theory, however, because the videos of the proof always has someone trying to mag dump from a mile away with a full auto gun, missing like 90% of the shots. It just looks like someone who's angry at losing and just wanting to find something to put the blame at. The theory of EOMM putting you up against players that will stomp you, or you will stomp, I can see happening. And I can see how seeing the kill cam of the guy who stomps you can influence you to buy the skin that you're using for the weapon, since the kill cam would literally put the weapon skin right on your face. Even if the skins doesn't give any advantage, not even visibility wise, it could definitely trick a player into thinking it does psychologically. In conclusion, the kill to death ratio and kill streaks are a large contributor to the top players in COD having such a strong dislike for SBMM, and it's here to stay, but EOMM should be the main focus instead. Anyways, that's the end of the video. If you liked it, hit the like button, hit dislike if you disliked it. If you disagreed with any of my points, or agreed but wanted to add something more to it, make sure to comment below. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. I'm signing off here. See you guys later.